The engine room of the Iron Tide smelled like burned metal and old oil. Yuna loved that smell. She had worked on this ship for 3 years, and every corner of it felt like home to her. She knew every pipe, every wire, and every strange sound the old vessel made in the middle of the night. Yuna was not like the other mechanics on the ship. She was human, and humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most species thought humans were too simple, too emotional, and too weak for serious work, but Yuna had proven them wrong many times. She fixed things that nobody else could fix. She made old machines work like new ones. Today, she was under the main power unit, her small hands working on a connection that had been giving trouble for weeks. She hummed a soft song while she worked. It was a habit she had since childhood. Her mother used to say that machines could hear music, and they worked better when they were happy. "What are you doing down there?" The voice was cold and sharp. Yuna knew that voice very well. It belonged to Admiral Kale, the commander of the Iron Tide. He was tall, much taller than any human. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes were like 2 pieces of silver. He was beautiful in a way that made Yuna's heart beat faster every time she saw him, but he never looked at her with kindness. To him, she was just another worker on his ship. Yuna pulled herself out from under the machine. Her face was dirty with grease, and her hair was a mess. She stood up quickly and tried to look professional. "I am fixing the power connection, Admiral," she said. "It has been unstable for 2 weeks. I found the problem." Admiral Kale looked at her work. His silver eyes moved slowly over the wires and tools she had spread on the floor. His face showed no emotion, but Yuna could see something in his eyes. It looked like disappointment. "This is not how we do repairs on a warship," he said. "You have taken apart half the system." "Yes, Admiral. But I needed to reach the main problem. The other engineers only fixed the surface. The real issue was deeper inside." "The other engineers followed proper procedures," Kale said. His voice was getting colder. "You have been here for 3 years, and you still do not understand how things work." Yuna felt her face grow hot. She wanted to explain, to show him that her way was better, but she knew it would not matter. Admiral Kyle had never trusted her methods. He thought humans were too messy, too chaotic. "I have received complaints about you," he continued. "You talk to the machines. You sing while you work. You touch systems that are not assigned to you." "I only want to help the ship," Yuna said. Her voice was small now. "The ship does not need your help. It needs proper maintenance from qualified engineers." Those words hurt more than Yuna expected. She had given everything to this ship. She had spent countless nights fixing problems that nobody else noticed. She had treated every broken wire like a wounded friend. Admiral Kale reached into his coat and pulled out a small data card. He held it out to her. "This is your termination notice," he said. "You will leave the Iron Tide when we reach the next station. Your service is no longer required." The world around Yuna seemed to stop. She stared at the data card in his hand. 3 years of work, 3 years of love and dedication, and it was ending like this. "Admiral, please," she said, "give me one more chance. I can show you that my methods work." "Your methods are primitive tinkering," Kale said. "This is a warship, not a human workshop. I need engineers who follow rules, not someone who treats machines like pets." Yuna took the data card. Her hand was shaking. She wanted to cry, but she would not let him see her tears. She still had her pride. "I understand, Admiral," she said quietly. She began to gather her tools. Each one felt heavy in her hands. These tools had been with her since her first day as a mechanic. Her father had given them to her before she left Earth. He had told her to always treat her work with love, and the work would love her back. The other crew members watched as she packed her things. Some of them looked sorry for her. Others looked relieved. Yuna had always been different, and different was not always welcome. As she walked toward the door, she stopped and looked back at the main power unit. The connection she had been working on was still open. She wanted to finish it, to make sure the ship would be safe, but that was not her job anymore. "The connection needs to be closed properly," she said to Admiral Kale. If you leave it like that, there will be problems. My engineers will handle it, he said. You do not need to worry about this ship anymore. Yuna nodded and walked out of the engine room. The metal hallway felt cold and empty. She had walked through this hallway 1,000 times, but now it felt like a stranger's place. She passed by the main control room and saw the heart of the ship, the biocore. It was a living machine, a mix of technology and organic material. Most ships in the galaxy had biocores, but the Irontide's core was very old and very special. Yuna had spent many hours sitting near it, talking to it, telling it stories about Earth. She stopped and placed her hand on the wall next to the biocore chamber. I have to go, she whispered. Take care of yourself, old friend. The lights in the hallway flickered for a moment. It was probably nothing, just a small power issue. But Yuna liked to think the ship was saying goodbye. She continued walking until she reached her small room. It was tiny. Just a bed and a small desk, but it had been her home. She packed her few belongings into a bag. There was a photo of her family, a small plant from Earth, and a worn book of old stories. When she was done, she sat on the bed and finally let the tears fall. She cried for the ship she loved, for the Admiral who would never see her true value, and for the future that now seemed so uncertain. The station was only 6 hours away. In 6 hours, she would leave the Iron Tide forever. She would find another ship, another job, another life. But she knew that no other ship would ever feel like this one. Yuna wiped her tears and looked out the small window at the stars. She was a human in a galaxy that did not understand her. But she was also strong. She would survive this, just like she had survived everything else. She just wished that Admiral Kale could have seen what she really was. Not a bad mechanic, but someone who truly loved machines. The Iron Tide reached Waypoint Station at exactly the scheduled time. Admiral Kale stood on the command bridge and watched as the small human woman walked down the exit ramp. She carried a single bag over her shoulder, and she did not look back. Kale told himself that this was the right decision. The ship needed order and discipline, not a mechanic who talked to machines and sang strange songs. Humans were too emotional for military work. Everyone knew that. Admiral, the departure is ready, said the navigation officer. Shall I activate the engines? Proceed, Kale said. The officer pressed the activation sequence. The bridge crew waited for the familiar hum of the engines coming to life. But nothing happened. The ship remained silent and still. There seems to be a problem, Admiral, the officer said. The engines are not responding. Kale frowned. Run the activation sequence again. The officer tried again. And again. And again. Each time, the result was the same. The Iron Tide refused to move. Call the engine room, Kale ordered. Find out what is wrong. Minutes later, the voice of Chief Engineer Taeho came through the communication system. Taeho was an experienced officer who had served on the Iron Tide for 10 years. If anyone could fix a problem, it was him. Admiral, we have a strange situation here, Taeho said. All the systems show green. Everything looks normal, but the engines simply will not start. That is impossible, Kale said. If everything is normal, the engines should work. I know, Admiral. We are checking everything manually. Give us some time. Kale cut the communication and looked out the main window. The station was still visible, a large metal structure floating in space. Somewhere on that station, the human woman was probably looking for a new job, a new life. He pushed the thought away. She was not his concern anymore. An hour passed. Then 2 hours. Then 3. The Iron Tide still did not move. Taeho came to the bridge personally. His face was covered with sweat, and his eyes showed confusion and frustration. Admiral, I do not understand what is happening, he said. We have checked every system 3 times. Everything is perfect. There is no reason for the ship to not work. Climb. There must be a reason, Kale said. Ships do not just stop working for no reason. I agree, Admiral, but we cannot find it. Kale thought for a moment. What about the biocore? Have you checked it? The biocore was the living heart of the ship. It connected all the systems together and made them work as one. Without the biocore, the Iron Tide was just a collection of metal and wires. The biocore readings are normal, Tejo said. But there is something strange. The core is producing a message on all the screens. A message? What message? Tejo looked uncomfortable. It says, "Core bond severed." We do not know what it means. Kale felt a cold feeling in his chest. He had heard of biocores forming bonds with crew members before. It was rare, but it happened sometimes. The bond made the ship work better, made it respond faster to commands. But if the bond was severed, the ship might refuse to work at all. Who was the biocore bonded to? Kale asked. We do not know, Admiral. The biocore does not share that information. We only know that the bond existed. And now, it is gone. Kale walked to the main control panel. He placed his hand on the surface and tried to connect with the ship's systems. The Iron Tide responded to his touch, but slowly and weakly. It was like trying to talk to someone who was very sad and did not want to speak. Ship, Kale said aloud. Tell me what you need. The lights flickered. The screens showed random patterns. Then, one by one, every screen on the bridge displayed the same message. Core bond severed. Admiral, one of the officers said nervously, I have never seen anything like this. Neither had Kale. In his 30 years of military service, he had commanded many ships. He had fought in battles, survived disasters, and solved countless problems, but he had never seen a ship refuse to work because it was unhappy. Check the crew records, he ordered. Find out who spent the most time near the biocore in the last 3 years. The officers worked quickly. Within minutes, they had an answer. Admiral, an officer said. According to the records, one crew member spent more time near the biocore than anyone else. She visited the core chamber almost every day, sometimes for hours at a time. Who? The officer looked at the screen and then at Kale. The human mechanic, sir, the one you dismissed this morning. Kale's heart sank. The cold feeling in his chest grew stronger. He thought about the human woman, how she talked to machines, how she sang while she worked, how she treated every piece of the ship like it was alive. At the time, he had thought she was foolish. Now, he was beginning to understand. The ship bonded with her, he said quietly, and when she left, the bond broke. Is that possible, Admiral? Tejo asked. I have never heard of a biocore bonding with a human before. Humans are not supposed to be compatible with our technology. Apparently, this human was different. Kale looked at the main screen. The message was still there, glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. Core bond severed. It was almost like the ship was crying out for someone, waiting for someone to come back. Can we form a new bond? He asked Tejo. Can someone else connect with the biocore? Tejo shook his head. Biocore bonds are not like normal connections, Admiral. They take time to form. Years. Sometimes. And even then, not everyone is compatible. The core chooses its own partner. And it chose her, Kale said. It chose the human woman. I called a bad mechanic. The irony was not lost on him. He had dismissed Yuna because he thought she did not understand the ship, but the truth was that she understood the ship better than anyone. The ship had chosen her, had formed a bond with her that was so strong it refused to work without her. Kale made a decision. It was not an easy decision, but it was the only one that made sense. Contact the station, he ordered. Find the human woman. Tell her that the ship needs her. And if she refuses to come back, Admiral? Kale paused. He had treated her badly. He had called her primitive and useless. He had taken away her job and her home. Why would she want to help him now? Then I will go to her personally, he said, and I will ask her to come back. The officers looked at each other in surprise. Admiral Kale never asked anyone for anything. He gave orders, and people followed them. That was how things worked, but this time was different. This time, the ship itself was asking for help. and Kale would do whatever it took to make his ship work again, even if it meant admitting that he had been wrong. Chief Engineer Tae-ho sat alone in his office, surrounded by screens filled with data. He had been studying the ship's maintenance logs for hours, trying to understand what made the human woman so special. At first, the logs seemed normal. Repairs were made, systems were checked, problems were solved. But as Tae-ho looked closer, he began to notice something strange. Every time Yuna worked on a system, that system performed better than before. Not just normal better, but much better. Power efficiency increased by 10%. Response times improved by 20%. Error rates dropped to almost zero. This does not make sense, Tae-ho said to himself. She used basic tools and simple methods. How did she get these results? He pulled up the video records from the engine room. The ship recorded everything, and Tae-ho wanted to see exactly what Yuna did when she worked. The first video showed Yuna fixing a broken cooling system. She lay on the floor, reaching into the machinery with her small hands. Nothing unusual about that. But then Tae-ho noticed something. She was talking, not to anyone around her, because she was alone. She was talking to the machine itself. "I know you are tired," Yuna said in the video. "You have been working so hard. But I am going to help you, okay? Just relax and let me take care of you." Tae-ho leaned closer to the screen. This was very strange behavior for a mechanic. Most engineers treated machines as tools, nothing more. They did not talk to them like they were living things. But Yuna did. She talked, and she listened. Sometimes she would pause, as if waiting for the machine to answer. Then she would nod and continue working. "You want me to replace this part, not fix it," she said in the video. "Okay, I understand. That makes sense. You know yourself better than I do." Tae-ho watched more videos. In each one, Yuna treated the machines with kindness and respect. She touched them gently, spoke to them softly, and seemed to understand things that the sensors could not detect. In one video, she was working near the biocore chamber. This was the most interesting recording of all. Yuna sat on the floor with her back against the wall, her tools forgotten beside her. She was just sitting there, her hand pressed against the metal surface. "I had a hard day today," she said. "The other engineers do not like me very much. They think I am strange. Maybe I am strange, but I cannot help it. You understand, do you not?" The lights in the chamber flickered in a gentle pattern. It almost looked like a response. "Thank you," Yuna said with a small smile. "You always make me feel better. You are my best friend on this ship." Tae-ho stopped the video. His hands were shaking. In all his years of engineering, he had never seen anything like this. The human woman had formed a real relationship with the ship, not just a working relationship, but something deeper. Something almost like love. He began to research human psychology and their history with machines. What he found amazed him. Humans had a long tradition of forming emotional bonds with their tools and vehicles. They gave names to their cars and ships. They talked to their computers and robots. They felt sad when machines broke, and happy when machines worked well. Most species in the galaxy thought this was foolish. Machines were machines. They did not have feelings. They did not need love. But Tae-ho was starting to wonder if that was true. He pulled up the biocore's activity logs and compared them to Yuna's work schedule. Every time she visited the core chamber, the core's activity increased. Every time she left, it decreased. The pattern was clear and consistent. The biocore was responding to her presence. It was happier when she was nearby. "Impossible," Tae-ho whispered. "Biocores do not have emotions." But the data told a different story. The biocore's efficiency had increased by 15% over the 3 years that Yuna worked on the ship. 15% was a huge improvement. It was the kind of improvement that engineers spent years trying to achieve, and Yuna had done it just by being kind. Tae-ho remembered something Yuna had said once during a team meeting. The other engineers had been arguing about how to fix a difficult problem. They all had complex solutions involving expensive parts and advanced techniques. Yuna had raised her hand and said, Maybe we should ask the ship what it wants. Everyone had laughed at her. Taeho had laughed too. The idea of asking a ship for its opinion seemed ridiculous. Now, he felt ashamed of that laughter. Yuna had understood something that none of them understood. The ship was not just a machine. It was a living system with its own needs and desires, and Yuna had taken the time to listen to those needs. He looked at one more video. It was from last week, just a few days before Admiral Kale dismissed her. Yuna was working late at night, fixing a small problem in the navigation system. She looked tired but happy. "Almost done," she said to the wires in front of her. "You are going to work perfectly after this. I promise." She finished the repair and tested the system. Everything worked perfectly, just as she had promised. "Good job," she said, patting the console gently. "You did so well. I am proud of you." Then she started to hum a soft song. It was a simple melody, something that sounded like a lullaby. As she hummed, the lights in the room dimmed slightly, as if the ship was relaxing. Taeho realized that this was what the other engineers had complained about. Yuna sang while she worked, and they thought it was unprofessional. But now he understood the truth. The ship liked it. The ship liked her songs, her words, her gentle touch. The ship liked being treated as a friend instead of a tool. And when she was taken away, the ship did not just lose a mechanic, it lost the person it cared about most. Taeho saved all the videos and data to a personal file. He needed to show this to Admiral Kale. The Admiral needed to understand what they had lost. He walked quickly to the bridge, his mind full of new thoughts. Humans were different from other species. They were emotional and messy, and sometimes illogical. But maybe that was not a weakness. Maybe it was a strength. Maybe the ability to love machines was the most human thing of all. When he reached the bridge, he found Admiral Kale staring at the main screen. The message was still there. Core bond severed. "Admiral," Taeho said, "I know what happened. I know why the ship will not work." Kale turned to face him. His silver eyes looked tired and worried. "Tell me." Taeho took a deep breath. The human woman did not just repair the ship. She loved it. She talked to it, sang to it, treated it like a living being. And the biocore responded to that love. It formed a bond with her, deeper than any bond I have ever seen. "I suspected as much," Kale said quietly. "There is more," Taeho continued. "I reviewed her work records. Every system she touched performed better than before. Not because of her technical skills, but because of her emotional connection. She made the ship want to work better." Kale was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. "I called her a bad mechanic. I said her methods were primitive tinkering. You were wrong, Admiral. We all were. Yuna was the best mechanic this ship ever had. She just showed it in a way we did not understand." Kyle nodded slowly. "Then we must bring her back. Not just for the ship, but because she deserves to be here." Taeho agreed. "I will prepare a shuttle. Shall I go to the station and find her?" "No," Kale said. "I will go myself. I was the one who sent her away. I should be the one to ask her to return." It was the first time Taeho had ever seen Admiral Kale admit he was wrong. It was also the first time he saw something that looked like humility in those silver eyes. Maybe humans were not the only ones who could learn and change. Maybe the ship was teaching all of them something important. Waypoint Station was a busy place. Ships came and went at all hours, bringing traders, travelers, and workers from every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Kale walked through the crowded hallways, searching for one small human woman. He had never been to this part of the station before. It was the lower level, where cheap bars and small hostels served those who had little money. The air smelled like old food and recycled oxygen. The lights flickered occasionally, showing the age of the station's systems. KL felt out of place here. His uniform was clean and expensive. His posture was straight and military. People looked at him with curiosity and suspicion. An admiral did not belong in a place like this, but he continued walking. He had to find Yuna. After asking several people, He finally got a useful answer. A bartender told him that a human woman had come in earlier that day. She was sitting in the corner, drinking something called Earth beer, and looking very sad. Kale found the bar easily. It was a small place, with old furniture and dim lights. Music played from a broken speaker, creating a sound that was more noise than melody. A few customers sat at the tables, lost in their own thoughts. And there, in the far corner, sat Yuna. She looked smaller than he remembered. Her shoulders were bent, and her face showed signs of crying. In front of her was a half-empty glass of yellow liquid. She stared at it as if it held all the answers to her problems. Kale walked toward her table. His heart was beating faster than usual, which surprised him. He was a military commander. He had faced enemy fleets without fear. But approaching this small human woman felt strangely difficult. "May I sit down?" he asked. Yuna looked up. When she saw who was standing before her, her eyes widened with surprise. Then the surprise changed to something else. Anger, maybe. Or hurt. "Admiral Kale," she said flatly. "Did you come to tell me more things I did wrong?" "No," he said. "I came to talk to you." She laughed. But there was no happiness in the sound. "Talk? You have never wanted to talk to me before. You only wanted to give orders and criticisms." Kale pulled out a chair and sat down without asking permission again. He knew she might tell him to leave, but he had to try. "You are right," he said. "I was not a good commander to you. I did not try to understand your methods. I only judged them as wrong, because they were different." Yuna stared at him. She seemed confused by his words. This was not the Admiral Kale she knew. "Why are you here?" she asked. "What do you really want?" Kale took a deep breath. This was the hard part. Admitting failure was not something he was good at. "The ship will not work," he said. "After you left, the engines refused to start. The systems are fine, but the biocore displays only one message. Core bond severed." Yuna's eyes changed. The anger faded, replaced by something that looked like concern. "The ship is not working?" "No, we have tried everything. Nothing helps. And you think it has something to do with me?" Kale nodded. Chief Engineer Tejo reviewed the records. "He found that you spent a lot of time near the biocore. You talked to the ship, sang to it, treated it like a friend. The core formed a bond with you. A very strong bond." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked down at her drink, then back at Kale. "I always felt connected to the Iron Tide," she said softly. "More connected than to any other ship I worked on. But I did not know the feeling was real. I thought I was just being silly." "It was real," Kale said. "And now that you are gone, the ship misses you. It refuses to work without you." "A ship cannot miss someone," Yuna said, but her voice was uncertain. "I would have said the same thing yesterday, but I have seen the evidence. The ship is waiting for you. It needs you." Yuna shook her head slowly. "You fired me. You told me my methods were primitive. You said I was not qualified to work on a warship. I was wrong." Those 3 words seemed to hang in the air between them. Kale watched Yuna's face as she processed what he had said. He could see the struggle in her eyes. Part of her wanted to forgive him. Part of her wanted to make him suffer for how he had treated her. "Say it again," she said. "I was wrong." Louder. Kale looked around the bar. Other customers were watching them now, curious about the strange scene. An admiral apologizing to a human mechanic was not something they saw every day. "I was wrong," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I made a mistake when I dismissed you. You are not a bad mechanic. You are the best mechanic the Iron Tide has ever had." A small smile appeared on Yuna's face. It was the first real smile Kale had ever seen from her. "That must have been hard for you to say," she said. "It was," he admitted. "But it was the truth, and the truth should be spoken." Yuna finished her drink in one long swallow. Then she set the glass down and looked directly at Kale. "If I come back, things have to change." "What kind of changes?" "I want respect," she said. "Not just from you, but from everyone on the ship. I am tired of being treated like a strange outsider. I work differently, yes. But my work is good. It is better than good. I will make sure you are treated with respect, Kale said. And I want to be allowed to do my job my way. No more complaints about talking to machines or singing while I work. That is how I connect with the systems. That is how I make things work. Agreed. Yuna leaned back in her chair and studied him carefully. You really need me that badly? The ship needs you. And yes, I need you too. The Iron Tide is my command. If it cannot fly, I have failed in my duty. There is something else, Yuna said. Her voice was quieter now, more serious. I want to know why you disliked me so much. From the first day I arrived, you looked at me like I was a problem. Why? Kale was not expecting that question. He had to think about his answer carefully. Humans are rare in our military, he said slowly. Before you, I had never worked closely with one. I had only heard stories. Stories about how emotional and unpredictable humans are. Stories about how they let their feelings control their actions. And you believe those stories? I believed them because they were easy to believe. It was simpler to think of humans as lesser beings than to try to understand you. That is prejudice, Yuna said. Yes, it is. And I am sorry for it. Yuna was quiet again. She seemed to be making a decision. Finally, she stood up from her chair. Okay, she said. I will come back. But you have to say, please first. Kale blinked. I have to what? Say please. Ask me properly. For a moment, Kale wanted to refuse. He was an admiral. He did not say please. He gave orders, and people followed them. But then he remembered the ship, silent and waiting. He remembered all the mistakes he had made. And he realized that this was not about pride anymore. This was about doing the right thing. Please, he said. Please come back to the Iron Tide. Yuna smiled again. That was not so hard, was it? Kale almost smiled back. Almost. Let me get my bag, Yuna said. Then we can go. The ship has been waiting long enough. As they walked out of the bar together, Kale noticed that Yuna was already humming a soft tune. It was a strange sound, but somehow it felt right. Maybe the ship would start humming too, once she was back where she belonged. The shuttle docked with the Iron Tide just as the station's lights began to dim for the night cycle. Yuna stepped through the airlock and took a deep breath. The air inside the ship smelled familiar, like home. She had been away for less than a day. But it felt like much longer. Admiral Kale walked beside her, silent and thoughtful. He had not spoken much during the shuttle ride. Yuna did not mind. She had a lot on her mind too. As they moved through the hallways, crew members stopped to stare. Word had spread quickly that the Admiral had gone to bring back the human mechanic. Some looked curious. Some looked confused. A few looked happy to see her. Yuna ignored them all. She was focused on something else. The ship felt different. The usual hum of power was missing. The lights seemed dimmer. The air felt heavier. The Iron Tide was sad. She could feel it in her bones. Where do you want to go first? Kale asked. The biocore chamber, Yuna said without hesitation. The heart of the ship. That is where I need to be. They walked together through the winding corridors. Tejo joined them along the way, his face showing both hope and worry. The core has been getting weaker, he reported. The message is still on all the screens. We have done everything we can think of, but nothing works. It will work now, Yuna said quietly. The ship just needs to know I am back. They reached the biocore chamber. It was a large room at the center of the ship, filled with a soft blue light. In the middle stood the core itself, a complex structure of metal and organic material. It looked almost like a giant heart, but made of technology and living tissue mixed together. Yuna walked toward it slowly. She could feel the eyes of everyone watching her, but she did not care. All her attention was on the core. Hello, old friend, she said softly. I am sorry I was away for so long. It was not my choice to leave. The biocore did not respond. The blue light remained dim and weak. Yuna placed both hands on the surface of the core. It was warm to the touch. Warmer than metal should be. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the connection she had built over 3 years. It was still there, weak and tired, but still there. "I know you are hurt," she whispered. "I know you felt abandoned, but I am here now. I came back for you." The light flickered. Just a tiny bit. But it was something. "I am not going to leave again," Yuna continued. "No matter what anyone says. You and I, we belong together. You are my ship, and I am your mechanic. That is how it should be." The light grew a little stronger. The warmth under her hands increased. Behind her, Kale watched in amazement. He could see the readings on the nearby screens. The biocore's activity was increasing. Energy levels were rising. Systems that had been silent for hours were beginning to wake up. Yuna started to hum. It was the same soft song she always hummed while working, a simple melody that her mother had taught her when she was a child. She had hummed it 1,000 times before. But this time, it felt more important than ever. The biocore pulsed in rhythm with her song. The blue light grew brighter and brighter until it filled the entire chamber. The warm hum of power returned to the ship, spreading from the core outward like blood through veins. On the bridge, officers gasped as their screens came to life. In the engine room, engines roared with new energy. Throughout the ship, lights brightened and systems activated. The iron tide was waking up. Yuna opened her eyes and smiled. "That is better," she said. "That is much better." The message on the screens changed. Core bond severed, disappeared. In its place, new words appeared. Core bond restored. "Welcome back." Tejo laughed with relief. It worked. It actually worked. Admiral Kale stepped forward. He looked at Yuna with new eyes. Not the eyes of a commander looking at a subordinate. Not the eyes of someone who saw only differences and flaws, but the eyes of someone who finally understood. "How did you do that?" he asked. Yuna turned to face him. Her cheeks were wet with tears, but she was smiling. "I did not do anything special," she said. "I just loved the ship, and the ship loved me back. That is all." "That is not all," Kale said. "That is something extraordinary. Something I have never seen before." He looked around the chamber, at the glowing biocore, at the happy crew members, at the screens showing healthy readings. "I have commanded ships for 30 years, he said. "I have always thought of them as tools. Powerful tools. Useful tools. But still just machines that follow orders. I never imagined that a ship could feel, could care, could refuse to work, because someone it loved was taken away." "Everything with a heart can love," Yuna said. "And the biocore is a kind of heart, is it not? It makes sense that it would feel things." Kael nodded slowly. "I suppose it does. I just never thought about it that way before." Tejo stepped forward. "Admiral, I have been thinking about this. The records show that the ship's performance improved dramatically during the time Yuna was on board. If her methods can produce such results, perhaps we should study them. Perhaps we should teach other mechanics to work the way she does." "You cannot teach love," Yuna said. "You can only feel it. Either you care about the machines you work with, or you do not. It is not a technique. It is a way of being." "Then perhaps we should choose mechanics who have that way of being," Kale suggested. "Perhaps we should look for people who see machines as more than tools." "That would be a good start," Yuna agreed. The ship hummed around them, content and happy. Yuna could feel the iron tide's joy through the walls, the floors, the very air. The ship was grateful to have her back, and she was grateful to be back. Later that night, Yuna sat in her small room, looking out the window at the stars. Her bag was still packed. She had not had time to unpack before going to the biocore chamber. There was a knock at her door. "Come in," she said. Admiral Kale entered. He looked less formal than usual. His uniform jacket was open, and his silver eyes seemed softer. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "Properly. Not just for fixing the ship, but for teaching me something important." Yuna tilted her head. "What did I teach you?" "That humans are not weak because they are emotional. They are strong because of it. Your love for this ship saved us today. Without your feelings, we would still be stuck at the station. Yuna smiled. Does this mean you do not think humans are primitive anymore? Kale almost smiled back. I think humans are strange and confusing, and do things I do not understand. But I also think you might be the most advanced species I have ever met. That is a big change from this morning. Yes, it is. I am trying to learn. He paused, then added, I also want to apologize again. Not because I need something from you, but because I was wrong, and you deserved better. Yuna stood up from her bed and walked toward him. She was much shorter than him, her head barely reaching his chest. But in that moment, she did not feel small. Apology accepted, she said. Again, thank you. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Yuna did something unexpected. She reached out and touched Kale's hand. Just a brief touch. Nothing more. The ship is not the only one who missed you, she said quietly. I mean, the ship is not the only one I missed. Kale looked down at her. His silver eyes were hard to read, but there was something warm in them now. You missed me? He asked. A little bit. You are difficult and cold and sometimes mean. But you are also brave and honest. And when you admitted you were wrong, I saw that you can change. That is rare. Most people cannot change. Neither can I, Kale said. Not easily. But you make me want to try. Yuna smiled. Then maybe that is a start. Outside the window, the stars shone bright and steady. The iron tide flew through space, its engines humming with power and its biocore glowing with warmth. And in a small room on a great warship, two very different beings began to understand that love was not a weakness to be hidden. It was a strength to be shared. Humans did not just fix machines, they loved them. And sometimes, love was the only thing that could fix what was truly broken.